Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. In this video, I'm going to follow up on a previous video that we've done for this channel when we discussed the extreme vetting policy and procedures which have been sort of coming to the forefront with respect to U.S. immigration in a consular processing context. As discussed previously, now President Trump, back when he was campaigning for the presidency, promised to make some rather drastic changes with respect to how U.S. visas are processed, and one of those policies was to implement protocols which were referred to as extreme vetting procedures. I caught a little bit of flack when I first made the video regarding the initial travel ban of proposed immigrants and travelers from certain countries, mostly because people basically said it didn't have anything to do with this region, specifically Southeast Asia. As I said at the time, as I said later, as I said in the last video about extreme vetting itself, to me this looks like a broader policy, not one necessarily which is going to only have implications for the nationals of the countries that were, say, involved in the travel ban specifically. I think this is going to have ripple effects across the entire sort of consular processing frontier. To that end, or to that point, a little bit further, so Department of State has requested emergency approval from, quote-unquote, emergency approval pursuant to federal regulations from the Office of Management and Budget for a new questionnaire which some applicants for U.S. visas would be required to complete. As noted in the previous video regarding extreme vetting, certain directives have apparently come from the White House directing Department of State officials to go ahead and begin trying to analyze or sort of classify groups of individuals who could be presumed to require further processing. The implications of this further processing are pointed out in more detail in this download from regulations.gov. Notice a request for emergency O and B approval and public comment. Basically, again, they're asking for a fast tracking of a change to the way in which applicants for U.S. visas are going to be vetted, the application process and how that's going to work. Abstract of proposed collection, and I'm sorry to just sort of read this, but it's probably best to just go from the horse's mouth. Again, this is from regulations.gov. The department proposes requesting the following information, if not already included in an application, from a subset of visa applicants worldwide. Again, that subset, we discussed that in a previous video. In order to more rigorously evaluate applicants for terrorism or other national security related visa ineligibilities. Again, although very few people are going to probably fall in, or very few, as a relative percentage of the overall number of applicants, very few people are going to specifically fall into these categories. But it would appear to me that over time this is probably going to become a more regularized thing, because once something like this gets passed, it's hard to say how in the end it's going to be implemented. But some of the proposed changes as far as the information that will be collected in connection with a U.S. visa application: travel history during the last 15 years, including source of funding for travel; address history during the last 15 years; employment history during the last 15 years; all passport numbers and country of issuance held by the applicant; names and dates of birth of all siblings; names and dates of birth of all children; names and dates of birth for all current and former spouses or civil and domestic partners; social media platforms and identifiers, also known as handles or usernames, if you will. Usernames, I added that, that's not a direct quote. Used during the last 5 years, and phone numbers and email addresses used during the last 5 years. Again, this is not exhaustive of what was in that publication. It's only sort of read in it verbatim, mostly to provide the following piece of sort of general insight, which is this process is getting more difficult. U.S. immigration is, it has been a constantly evolving and in some ways an increasingly complex process, although certain things in the past, such as the automation of, say, visa applications themselves, that made things a little bit easier from a paperwork reduction standpoint. But overall, the general trend seems to be more toward complexity, and it looks to me like, notwithstanding the fact that it appears that these protocols are to be implemented not in a it doesn't appear that they necessarily want this to be a general thing at first. I think it's fairly safe to assume that it's a genuine possibility that down the road these could all be sort of just routine questions that are incorporated into the overall process, and it's just something that people sort of get used to and adapt to. But that being said, it looks to me as though the consular processing of visa applications, just the visa process generally, is going to get more complex over time. I don't want to necessarily say difficult per se, but yes, I think it will be a more difficult overall protocol when it comes to consular processing of individuals wishing to go to the United States.